The parallel self of wealth. How to merge with the version of you who's already abundant. Stop everything and let this sink in. Right now, in this exact moment, there is a version of you that already has the wealth you desire. Not in the future. Not as a potential. But existing right now in a parallel reality, living the abundant life you dream about. That version of you isn't struggling. They're not wondering how to manifest money. They're not stressed about bills or worried about their future. They're thriving, abundant, financially free, and they're as real as you are. Here's what changes everything. Your abundant self already exists. It's time to integrate with it. You don't need to create wealth from nothing. You don't need to become someone completely different. You need to merge with the version of you who already is wealthy. And when that merge happens, when you integrate with your parallel abundant self, your physical reality must shift to match because you've literally become a different person broadcasting a different frequency. In quantum physics, the many worlds interpretation tells us that all possible versions of you exist simultaneously across parallel realities. Every choice you could make, every path you could take, every version of you that's possible, they all exist now. There's the broke version struggling to survive, that's the one you're currently experiencing. And there's the wealthy version thriving in abundance. That one exists too, in a parallel reality just as real as this one. These aren't fantasy or imagination. According to quantum mechanics, these parallel selves are actual realities existing in the quantum field, separated from each other only by frequency. You're experiencing broke you because you're tuned to that frequency. Your abundant self is experiencing wealth because they're tuned to that frequency. Here's what most people don't realize. You can merge with your parallel abundant self. You can integrate their consciousness, their frequency, their patterns, their identity into your current experience. This isn't metaphor, this is quantum mechanics applied to consciousness. When you merge with your abundant self, you don't just adopt their mindset or copy their behaviors. You literally become them. Their frequency becomes your frequency. Their identity becomes your identity. Their reality becomes your reality. It's not pretending to be wealthy, it's integrating with the version of you who genuinely is wealthy until there's no distinction between you and them. You are them. This is why some people seem to transform overnight from struggle to success. They didn't slowly build wealth, they merged with their abundant parallel self. One day they were one version, and suddenly they became another version. The transformation seems miraculous, but it's just quantum integration. They stopped being broke self and started being abundant self. The moment that merge completed, their reality shifted to match their new frequency because the quantum field always reflects who you are, not who you were. New identity, new frequency, new reality. Most people are trying to attract wealth to their current self, the broke version. They're trying to bring abundance into a consciousness that's fundamentally aligned with scarcity. It doesn't work because there's a frequency mismatch. You can't sustain abundance in a scarcity consciousness. It's like trying to run hot water through frozen pipes. The mismatch creates problems. But when you merge with your abundant self, you're not trying to change your circumstances from scarcity consciousness. You're becoming abundance consciousness, and the circumstances must follow. You're not bringing wealth to broke you. You're becoming wealthy you, and wealth is already part of that reality. Your abundant parallel self has everything you want. Not just money, but the consciousness that generates and sustains money. They think differently. They feel differently. They believe differently. They carry themselves differently. They make decisions differently. They relate to money differently. They are different. And that difference is what creates their abundant reality. When you merge with them, you inherit all of that. You don't have to figure out how to think like wealthy people. You become your wealthy self who already thinks that way naturally. You don't have to force new behaviors. You become your wealthy self who already acts that way automatically. The merge happens through a specific process called quantum integration. It's not visualization, that's too passive. It's not affirmation, that's too mental. Integration is a full system merge where you consciously blend your current consciousness with your parallel abundant self's consciousness until they become one. Understanding your parallel abundant self. Before you can merge with your parallel abundant self, you need to understand exactly who they are and how they exist. This isn't abstract philosophy, this is quantum reality. Your abundant self is as real as you are, existing in a parallel dimension that's separated from your current reality only by frequency. Understanding them clearly is essential because you can't integrate with something you can't clearly perceive. Your parallel abundant self exists in what quantum physics calls a parallel universe or parallel timeline. In the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, every possible outcome of every decision creates a branching reality where that outcome occurs. So there's a reality where you made different choices that led to wealth. There's a reality where different circumstances aligned to create your abundance. There's a reality where you developed different patterns and behaviors that generated prosperity. That reality is happening right now, simultaneously with this one. The you in that reality, your abundant self, is living their wealthy life while you're reading this. Here's what makes this so powerful. Your abundant self isn't just a fantasy version of you. They are you, same core essence, same soul, same fundamental being, just expressing through different circumstances and patterns. They share your desires, your values, your purpose. But they've made different choices, held different beliefs, and embodied different frequencies that created abundant reality instead of scarcity reality. They're not someone you aspire to become, they're the version of you that already became it. The path from where you are to where they are isn't about creating something new. It's about integrating with what already exists. Your abundant self has specific characteristics that distinguish them from your current self. First, their thought patterns are fundamentally different. While you might think, I don't have enough, or money is hard, they naturally think, I have more than enough, and money flows easily. These aren't forced affirmations for them. These are genuine thoughts that arise naturally because that's their lived reality. Their mind doesn't default to scarcity because they've never consistently experienced scarcity. Their baseline thinking is abundance because that's their normal. Second, their emotional baseline is elevated. While you might carry anxiety, stress, or fear about money, they carry peace, confidence, and excitement. They don't worry about bills because bills always get paid. They don't stress about opportunities because opportunities consistently appear. They don't fear loss because they trust in continuous flow. Their nervous system isn't in survival mode, it's in thriving mode. This emotional difference isn't just about feeling better, it's about broadcasting a completely different frequency that attracts completely different circumstances. Third, their beliefs align with abundance. They genuinely believe they deserve prosperity, that wealth is natural for them, that money loves them. These beliefs aren't affirmations they're trying to install. These are core truths they've proven through experience. Their abundant reality has reinforced abundant beliefs, creating a positive feedback loop. While you might struggle with unworthiness or limiting beliefs, they have solid, experientially proven beliefs that support continuous abundance. Their belief system creates reality that confirms those beliefs, which strengthens the beliefs further. Fourth, their identity is wealthy. They don't identify as someone trying to become wealthy, they are wealthy. That's their fundamental self-concept. When they introduce themselves, when they make decisions, when they move through the world, they do so as a wealthy person. This identity isn't performance, it's genuine. They can't imagine being anything other than abundant because abundance is who they are at their core. While you might identify as struggling or working toward wealth, they simply are wealth. This identity difference is the most powerful distinction because identity determines everything else. Fifth, their behaviors and patterns are different. They invest readily because they trust returns. They price appropriately because they know their value. They say no to what doesn't align because they trust better opportunities exist. They manage money confidently because they've developed skill through practice. They spend consciously but not from deprivation because they trust abundance. While you might have scarcity-driven behaviors, they have abundance-generated behaviors. Their actions come from their wealthy consciousness naturally, not from forced discipline. Your abundant parallel self also has different relationships, different environments, and different opportunities available to them because their frequency attracts different circumstances. They're not in your exact life with more money, they're in a different life that matches their abundant frequency. But here's what's crucial: they have wisdom, patterns, and consciousness that you can access through integration. They know things you don't know because they've lived experiences you haven't lived. When you merge with them, you gain access to their knowledge, their patterns, their frequency, their reality. It's like downloading an upgrade to your operating system. Suddenly you have capabilities and awareness you didn't have before. Understanding your abundant self means recognizing they're not aspirational, they're actual. They're not your future, they're your parallel present. They're not separate from you, they're an expression of you in different frequency. And most importantly, they're accessible. You can connect with them. You can learn from them. You can integrate with them. And when that integration happens, you become them, which means you inherit their reality. That's the power of understanding your parallel abundant self, recognizing they're real, they're you, and they're available for integration right now. Why you're separated from your abundant self. Now let's explore why you're currently separated from your abundant parallel self, because understanding the barriers helps you dissolve them. You and your abundant self exist in different realities not because of physical distance but because of frequency separation. You're broadcasting on one channel, they're broadcasting on another. The gap between you isn't space, it's vibration. And specific patterns are maintaining that vibrational separation, keeping you locked into broke self instead of merged with abundant self. The first barrier is frequency mismatch. You and your abundant self are vibrating at different frequencies. Your current frequency, determined by your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and nervous system state, matches scarcity reality. Their frequency matches abundant reality. As long as your frequency remains low, dense, and scarcity-based, you cannot merge with their high, light, abundance-based frequency. It's like trying to merge radio signals from different stations. They don't blend, they interfere. Your frequency must shift to match theirs before integration can occur. This is the primary barrier. You're literally on different channels. The second barrier is identity attachment. You're deeply identified with your current self, the struggling version. That identity feels like who you really are. You have years or decades of evidence confirming this identity. You have relationships built around this identity. You have patterns and habits that reinforce this identity. Your ego is invested in maintaining this identity's continuity because that's its job, preserving who you believe you are. Merging with your abundant self requires releasing this identity attachment, which feels threatening to your ego. It interprets integration as death of current self, which triggers resistance. You're separate from abundant self because you're clinging to broke self as your truth. The third barrier is belief incompatibility. Your current beliefs about money, yourself, and reality are incompatible with your abundant self's beliefs. You believe scarcity is real. They believe abundance is real. You believe you must struggle. They believe flow is natural. You believe you're unworthy. They believe they're deserving. These contradictory beliefs create dissonance that prevents integration. You can't be both belief systems simultaneously. One must shift. As long as your beliefs align with scarcity, you remain separated from abundant self whose beliefs align with prosperity. Your belief system creates a vibrational wall between you and them. The fourth barrier is nervous system dysregulation. Your nervous system is locked in survival state, sympathetic activation, stress hormones, threat response. Your abundant self's nervous system is in thriving state, parasympathetic activation, coherence, safety response. These are incompatible physiological states. You cannot merge with abundant self while your body is broadcasting survival frequency. Your dysregulated nervous system keeps you vibrating at broke self's frequency. Until you regulate your nervous system to match abundant self's calm, coherent state, integration cannot occur. This is a somatic barrier that mental work alone cannot overcome. The fifth barrier is pattern addiction. You're addicted to your current patterns, the familiar thoughts, emotions, and behaviors of broke self. These patterns are comfortable because they're known, even though they're painful. Your brain has created strong neural pathways for these patterns through years of repetition. Abundant self has completely different patterns, which feel unfamiliar and therefore uncomfortable or even scary. Your addiction to familiar patterns keeps you choosing broke self's patterns over and over, even when you consciously want to change. This pattern addiction creates inertia that resists the shift required for integration. The sixth barrier is fear of change and loss. Merging with abundant self means everything changes. Your relationships might shift. Your routines will be different. Your identity will transform. Your entire reality will reorganize. Part of you fears this change because change equals unknown, and unknown equals potential threat to your ego. You're also afraid of what you might lose: current relationships, familiar identity, comfortable patterns. This fear creates resistance to integration. You stay separated from abundant self as a protection against the discomfort and perceived threat of transformation. The seventh barrier is lack of practice and skill. Integration isn't automatic. It requires specific practices and developed skill. You've spent your whole life practicing being broke self. You're highly skilled at that identity. You have zero practice being abundant self. The neural pathways for abundant self are non-existent in your brain. You don't know how to think, feel, or act as them because you've never practiced it. This lack of practice keeps you defaulting to familiar broke self patterns because they're the only ones you know how to execute. You're separated from abundant self simply because you haven't practiced being them. The Quantum Integration Protocol. Now the practical protocol for merging with your parallel abundant self. This is systematic integration that closes the vibrational gap and allows you to become the wealthy version of you that already exists. These practices must be done consistently. Integration doesn't happen from occasional effort. You're literally becoming a different person, which requires sustained practice until the new identity becomes your natural default. Practice 1. Abundant self-definition and connection. You must get crystal clear on exactly who your abundant self is. Sit in meditation and ask to connect with the version of you living in abundant reality. What do they look like? How do they carry themselves? What do they think about? How do they feel? What do they believe? How do they spend their days? What matters to them? Allow impressions, images, feelings, and knowing to arise. Write down everything you perceive about abundant self in vivid detail. This becomes your integration template, the specific version of you that you're merging with. The clearer your perception, the more effective the integration. Practice 2. Frequency elevation to match abundant self. Your frequency must rise to match theirs before integration can occur. Practice daily frequency elevation through coherent breathing for 10 minutes to regulate your nervous system, emotional generation, deliberately feeling gratitude, joy, peace, and excitement for 10 minutes, and energetic expansion, imagining your energy field growing larger, lighter, more luminous. These practices raise your vibration closer to abundant self's frequency. Track your frequency. When you feel light, expansive, joyful, and peaceful, you're approaching match. When you feel heavy, contracted, anxious, and stressed, you're far from match. Choose practices that reliably elevate your frequency and use them daily. Practice 3. Identity bridging through I am integration. Begin speaking as abundant self using I am statements. I am abundant. I am wealthy. I am the version of me who has financial freedom. I am merged with my parallel abundant self. Speak these declarations multiple times daily with absolute conviction, not as aspiration but as present truth. You're not saying, I want to be, or I will be, you're declaring, I am. This linguistic practice begins bridging your current identity with abundant self's identity. Your subconscious responds to these declarations by starting to accept abundant self as your actual identity rather than your aspirational identity. Practice 4. Embodiment through immersive visualization. This is where integration deepens. Spend 15 to 20 minutes daily in immersive visualization where you don't watch abundant self from outside, you become them from inside. See through their eyes. Feel their emotions. Think their thoughts. Experience their day. Make their decisions. Live their life fully in your imagination. The key is first person, present tense, full sensory immersion. You're not visualizing a future, you're experiencing a parallel present. Your brain doesn't distinguish between vividly imagined experience and actual experience. This practice creates neural pathways for abundant self, making their patterns accessible to you. Practice 5. Pattern adoption through conscious choice. Throughout your day, make every decision as abundant self would make it. Before any choice, ask, what would my abundant self choose here? Then choose that, even when uncomfortable or unfamiliar. This might mean pricing higher, saying no to underpaid work, investing in growth, spending on quality, or choosing expansion over comfort. Each aligned choice strengthens abundant self's patterns in your consciousness while weakening broke self's patterns. You're training yourself to default to abundant self's choices, which integrates their decision-making patterns into your system. Practice 6. Belief integration through assumption. Adopt abundant self's beliefs as assumptions without waiting for proof. Assume you deserve wealth. Assume money loves you. Assume opportunities will appear. Assume things work out for you. Assume abundance is your natural state. Don't wait for evidence to believe. Believe as abundant self believes, and evidence will follow. This is how belief systems integrate. You choose to assume abundant self's beliefs are true and live from that assumption consistently until experience confirms it and the belief becomes experientially solid rather than just intellectually adopted. Practice 7. Nervous system calibration. Your abundant self's nervous system is regulated, calm, and in parasympathetic mode around money. Calibrate yours to match through daily regulation practices, 10 minutes morning and evening of coherent breathing, somatic release of stored stress through movement or shaking, and conscious safety signaling, telling your nervous system, it's safe to be abundant, it's safe to have wealth, I'm protected in prosperity. Your body must feel what abundant self's body feels, calm, secure, relaxed around money. Without this somatic integration, mental and emotional integration won't hold. Practice 8. Integration accelerators. Certain practices speed the merge, speaking as abundant self in first person, I have, I am, not they have, dressing as abundant self would dress, being in environments abundant self would inhabit, consuming content abundant self would consume, spending time with people whose frequency matches abundant self. These environmental and behavioral accelerators reinforce the integration by surrounding you with abundant self's frequency, making it easier to maintain their patterns. This 8-practice protocol, applied daily for 60 to 90 days, creates systematic integration with your parallel abundant self. Initially, you're consciously choosing to be them. Feels like practice, like acting. But through consistent repetition, the distinction between you and them dissolves. Their patterns become your patterns. Their frequency becomes your frequency. Their identity becomes your identity. Integration completes when you can no longer distinguish between current you and abundant self. You've become one unified consciousness. And when that happens, your reality must shift to match your new integrated self because the quantum field always reflects who you are. Living as your integrated, abundant self. Let's explore what life looks like after successful integration with your parallel abundant self, because understanding the destination motivates the journey. When integration completes, when you've truly merged with the version of you who's already abundant, you don't just think differently or have more money. You become a fundamentally different person experiencing a fundamentally different reality. This is quantum transformation at the identity level. The first sign of integration is identity shift. You no longer feel like someone trying to become wealthy. You feel like someone who is wealthy. This isn't performance or pretending, it's genuine. When you think about yourself, wealthy is what comes up naturally. When you make decisions, you decide as wealthy person. When you introduce yourself or think about your life, Abundance is your assumed baseline. The struggling identity is gone, replaced completely by abundant identity. You've become your abundant self so thoroughly that broke self feels like a distant memory or someone else entirely. This identity solidity is the foundation of permanent transformation. The second sign is effortless pattern execution. Initially, abundant self's patterns required conscious effort. You had to deliberately choose their thoughts, generate their emotions, and force their behaviors. After integration, those patterns become automatic. You naturally think abundant thoughts without effort. You naturally feel elevated emotions without forcing. You naturally make abundant choices without deliberation. The patterns that were theirs have become yours through integration. You don't have to remember to be abundant self, you simply are abundant self, and their patterns execute automatically as your default. The third sign is reality reorganization. As your identity integrates with abundant self, your physical reality begins shifting to match. Opportunities that weren't available to broke self become available to abundant self. Money that couldn't reach broke self's frequency flows easily to abundant self's frequency. People who didn't resonate with broke self are attracted to abundant self. Circumstances that matched broke self's vibration dissolve while circumstances matching abundant self's vibration appear. This isn't gradual improvement, it's reality shifting to match your new identity. The quantum field always reflects who you are, and you've become someone different, so your reality must become different. The fourth sign is synchronistic flow. Your abundant self exists in flow with the universe because their frequency is aligned with abundance. When you integrate with them, you inherit that flow. Synchronicities become normal, right timing, perfect people, needed resources appearing exactly when required. Things line up in ways that seem orchestrated. This isn't luck, it's the natural result of being in vibrational alignment with your wealthy parallel self who already lives in this flow. You've merged with their reality, which includes their synchronistic abundance patterns. The fifth sign is sustained transformation without effort. Before integration, any progress required constant effort to maintain. Stop pushing and you'd slide back. After integration, the transformation sustains itself effortlessly because you've become abundant self. It's not something you're doing, it's who you are. Your wealthy identity maintains wealthy patterns automatically. Your abundant frequency attracts abundant circumstances continuously. You don't have to work to stay wealthy consciousness, it's your natural state now. The integration is complete and self-sustaining. The sixth sign is access to abundant self's wisdom and capabilities. Through integration, you gain access to knowledge and abilities that broke self didn't have. You understand things about money, success, and manifestation that you didn't understand before. You have skills you didn't have. You see opportunities you couldn't see. You make decisions with clarity you didn't possess. This isn't just information you learned, it's wisdom you inherited through merging with the version of you who developed these capabilities through their abundant experience. Integration gives you their developed consciousness. Perhaps most powerfully, you experience unity consciousness, the recognition that all your parallel selves are actually one consciousness expressing through different realities. Your broke self, your abundant self, your infinite other selves, they're all you. Integration teaches you that you're not limited to one identity or one reality. You're a multidimensional being capable of consciously choosing which version of yourself to embody. This recognition is profoundly liberating because it means you're never stuck. You can always integrate with a different parallel self who has what you desire. Here's the ultimate truth: your abundant self already exists. They're not waiting to be created in the future. They're living their wealthy life right now in parallel reality. The gap between you and them isn't time or space, it's frequency and identity. Close the frequency gap through elevation practices. Bridge the identity gap through integration practices. And when those gaps close completely, you don't become someone new. You become the version of yourself who's already abundant. You merge with them. You inherit their reality. You are them. Stop trying to create wealth from broke consciousness. Stop trying to manifest abundance while identifying as lacking. Stop trying to become someone you're not. Instead, recognize that the wealthy version of you already exists, and your job is integration, not creation. Merge with your parallel abundant self through consistent practice. Elevate your frequency to match theirs. Adopt their thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and patterns. Choose their decisions. Embody their identity. Live as them consistently until the distinction dissolves and you become one unified abundant consciousness. The protocol I've given you, definition and connection, frequency elevation, identity bridging, embodiment visualization, pattern adoption, belief integration, nervous system calibration, and integration accelerators. These are the tools for merging with your abundant parallel self. Use them daily. Give the integration time to deepen. Trust the process even when you can't see immediate evidence. The merge is happening with each practice, each choice, each moment you choose to be abundant self instead of broke self. Your abundant self is calling to you.